have been enjoying spotlighting not only City Lights regulars, but also our fellow theater companies who are doing especially cool things with reopening. We had a whole show about Los Altos Stage. We've been talking to Silicon Valley Shakespeare. And tonight I'm really excited to spotlight our friends at the Pear in Mountain View. Welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome. So they are in the middle right now of their reopening production, The Late Wedding by Christopher Chen. This is the reopening after 15 months. It is a hybrid production, which means that not only do you have the choice of seeing it in person or on your computer, but you can see it either, depending on the night, in person and indoor, in person and outdoors, or streaming, which I think is really, really cool. We have a lot of folks here tonight from the Pear. We have artistic director Sinjin Jones. We have the Late Wedding director. I'm going to make sure I don't miss anybody. I have my list in front of me. Sinohui Hinjosa is the director of the Late Wedding. We have Annamarie MacLeod, who is one of the actors from the Late Wedding. We have Mothers of the Bride playwright Meghan Maugeri. And we have Mothers of the Bride director Katie Hipol Garcia. And welcome, everyone. So glad to have you here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
They're so polite. Most of them are muted. Sinjin, let's start with you because you are the artistic director at the Pear, but you had kind of a trial by fire because you started, I believe, in January 2020. Is that right?
Yes, just in time. It was quite the adventure.
Just in time. So tell us a little bit about, gosh, what brought you to the Pear, where you came from, and what the Pear was doing. What were you in the middle of when the pandemic started?
Yeah, lots of questions there. I think so. When I came to the Bay Area, I moved here in August of 2019, just to it seemed fun at the time. I had a friend who was moving out here to do law school, and I had been doing some artistic directing and ran a film production company in Denver, and it seemed like a good time to experience somewhere new. And so moved out here and was doing some immersive work. I had applied to the Pear before I got out here, and I saw Sweat at the Pear during the interview process. And there were a couple of things that I really loved about the Pear. One was that it felt like family when you walked in. People didn't know who I was, but everyone was really kind and really lovely. And it just felt like coming into a family. I like shows that ask good questions. And the first show I saw at the Pear was Sweat. And it's a play that talks about some of the important things that are going on in our world. And I love that commitment to doing work that challenges people, that ignites conversation. So it felt like a really meaningful place to land. And so I joined in January 2020 officially. And we were just opening, Taking Steps, which we got through the full run of Taking Steps, which is this hilarious, wonderful farce in January. Incident of the dog in the nighttime. In fact, I pulled the plug on the show right before the first preview.
I'm sorry, Sinjin, you cut out for just a second.
Oh, yes.
The curious incident, I assume.
Yeah, it was the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime.
Yeah.
And I had to pull the plug. I mean, I made the choice right before our first preview that, it seemed like the writing was on the walls, and we pulled it. Luckily, later on in the pandemic, we were able to get the rights to stream it for some of the patrons who didn't get to see it. Not the same, but we had filmed a dress rehearsal for archival purposes, and so we had it. We were lucky to have it because we usually cut trailers, and so felt really meaningful to be able to do that. And then we went to all digital production. So I mean, that's how I started in where we were when the pandemic sort of took hold of us.
Trial by fire, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, we were in the middle. We were about to open Coded, a new play by Kirsten Brandt about female video game designers. And it was the same thing with us. We had two previews, and we videoed one of the previews just informally. And then the world went dark right before opening night. So it's so good to have that video, even if it's not the most professional video, just you had that at least.
Yeah.
Share with people.
Yeah, I felt very lucky, and filmmaking is something I feel very passionately about, and cutting trailers is something that I feel really good about, and just so happened that those two things became very beneficial in the past year, and certainly at the beginning of the pandemic.
And little did you know that you'd be bringing more of the filmmaking
Yes,
Skills in live theater.
not the job I thought I was going to be doing for the first year, but it's all good. Art is art.
True. That's true. Oh, wow. Wow. Before we start talking about the late wedding, I have a little slideshow that has a bunch of photos from the late wedding and also from Mothers of the Bride. So the late wedding is running right now, and it's running through July 18th. And then after that, in August, starting August 20th, will be Mothers of the Bride world premiere. And so before we dive into those, I'm going to show a quick slideshow that's got some great photos of the current show, and then also the Late Wedding hasn't opened yet, but it started off as a short play in the Pear Slices Festival of Short Works. So that's super cool. I'm going to show that right now so you can get a taste of both of those shows. I love that picture of Megan at the end, the happy playwright at the reading of her play. That's wonderful.
So good.
Oh, so good. All right, let's start out talking about the late wedding. Now this is by Christopher Chen. I have never seen it, but you were kind enough to send me the script and I read it and I just loved it. It is this just innovative, unusual. It's hard to describe. It's hard to describe. I would love to hear you tell us why you chose this play for the return after 15 months. And then, well, we've got our director and one of our actors to talk about the play as well and tell those of us who are not familiar with it what this play is about. Sum it up in 5 words or fewer, right? There's a challenge.
Good luck to them. I will not attempt that.
Yeah. Why'd you pick this play? Why is this the play for the Pear's reopening?
Yeah, I mean, so originally in this slot we had Falsettos, which I think is a great show. We weren't 100%, one, we weren't going to get the rights to stream Falsettos, and it was really important to me. And then as we were surveying our audience, people weren't exactly comfortable coming back. And of course, opinions are changing about COVID every day, and we want to be safe. We want to be responsive to the community. And so wanted something that we definitely could do live and also stream, and Falsettos wasn't that choice. Plus, singing and at the time when we were doing this, we didn't quite know what the world was going to be like, and so we wanted to choose a play that would be maybe more appropriate. And so I went on quite the adventure looking for something that I thought was good, and it was really important to me to signal two things. One, that I wanted to do a play that it was likely that other folks who were opening up weren't going to be doing at the same time, something that was a truly unique experience, and something that drew attention to the fact that we are coming back to theater, something that is very openly and honestly talking about what theater is and the process of creating theater and all the ways that we connect with theater and draws an audience's attention to it. It was also really important to me to choose a play that feasibly could work and could be enjoyable when you were watching it on the screen, if you were watching it outside, if you were watching it inside, and to choose a playwright that was local and from a traditionally marginalized background. And so all those things sort of were whirling around, and I was familiar with Christopher Chen because I have read some of his plays in consideration for other stuff in the future. And so I was just looking around, and Jeffrey Lowe, who is a great connector of human beings, was like, I can probably get you this script if you want. And so he connected us and I was able to read it. And I was like, if I can find someone crazy enough to direct this show in the amount of time that we have, which it was not a lot of time. It was very short because we had to pivot really quickly because the rights holders weren't particularly efficient at giving us their decision about whether or not we could do streaming for falsettos. And so if I was like, if I can get someone crazy enough to do it, this is the show, because it's going to be an experience that people talk about. It's really funny, it's fun, it's relatively light, but also balances that with some meaningful discussions about both life, about writing, about love, and about theater. And it's going to be an experience that keeps, as it says in the play, that keeps people talking, and that starts before the audience, when the audience is born, and that ends long after the audience is gone away from the theater. And that to me is like a beautiful statement to make as we reopen the theater. And you know, Sinohui had a lot of was crazy enough to take it on and seemed excited about it, and so we just got very excited about it. And I mean, he can tell you from his perspective, of course, but yeah, that's why we ended up choosing it. It seemed fun, it seemed unique, it seemed like something that, you know, everyone is not going to get the whole thing, and that's okay, but you will go in thinking, oh, this is going to be interesting, and you will leave thinking, wow, that was the most interesting theatrical experience I've ever had. It's unique, it's odd, and the more you think about it, the more pieces sort of fall together for you about what the story is. So
Nice. Well, Sino, do you want to jump in and kind of give us an overall description?
Well, in 5 words or less, I can tell you what it's about. No, I actually can't. And that's, I think, the appeal of it. When Sinjin, I believe the way this worked out is he sent me a note saying, hey, we should talk. And I'm like, okay. And we talked about stuff. And he said, yeah, I have this thing. I think maybe you would be really, it might be a good piece for you to direct. And I said, oh, what's going on with it? He goes, well, it's different. It's maybe a little odd or strange, or, and I'm like thinking, is this a compliment? Is this, you know, I'm not really sure what he's saying. And as, you know, as one is wont to do, please send me the script. So I read the script, and within an hour of reading the script, I was on the Alameda in San Jose at the used bookstore looking for books by Italo Calvino. And I picked up 2 of them, including one of them that he mentions, and immediately started reading them. And Christopher Chen had an incredible ability to take the written word that Italo Calvino had created and built a way of introducing characters and putting it directly in the script. In the book, you're reading for 30 pages. 30 pages in, it says, now I know you've been reading for 30 pages and I haven't introduced any characters and nobody's really said anything. Is this the right book for you? And I'm like, I'm in. I'm absolutely in. This is the kind of guy that I want to read. So I read it, came back to Sinjin and said, yeah, let's find a way to do this. Not thinking anything about, one of the exciting things about the play, it says in the script, you can have between 4 and 16 performers. Well, that's great, but we turned this around, and I believe I want to go with about, I mean, reasonably 21 days. Is that about right?
From conception to opening.
Right, for the time that we said we're going to do this, 21 days later we were open.
Yeah.
And that's not the norm. I was actually brought on here tonight to let Katie know she's going to have 21 days as well. She didn't know this, but that's not true at all. And because they had another show that was ready to go, logistics and everything kind of changed, and we just had to like find a way to do it. So everything was on Zoom as far as the rehearsals and in initial introductions and everything. We worked very hard, but we had to break it apart. We had multiple Zoom events every single day. In some respects, we rehearsed even more than normal. And but the interesting thing for me was there's a character throughout the play that supports the way it's told, the storytelling facility, and that's the narrator. And it was really funny. In my first reading, I had, after I read it, I met with Sinjin, we were having coffee, and I said, I have somebody in mind for the narrator. And I go, I think she had a one-woman show at the Pear. And he goes, really? Who is that? Annamarie MacLeod. And I said, it really is. And And immediately I got a hold of her and I said, you know, this is somebody who could really make a difference in this by her presence, her sense of understanding, and her ability to kind of like deliver the story and let it unfold itself. And Annamarie can tell you how that started.
And you're very much weaving together different stories. When I first heard the title, I thought it was just a wedding, you know, it was a wedding play, but it's different couples, it's different interactions of people, and it jumps from story to story, and yet somehow they're connected. Annamarie, tell us a little bit more about how that works.
It's well, I like to tell people it's not a head play, it's a heart play. I think part of the beauty of the show is that it's just familiar enough for you to kind of want to engage, but just when you settle in, we're going to go to something else. There's always surprise, there's always misdirection. I think really, if I were a stage magician, I think that this would be the show for stage magic. I do. But what I love about it is that by the end of it, because you haven't been given a linear story to follow, you're left with the experience of your emotions sitting with you, because you don't have this. You can't think about it in a way that you normally would with the show. So you're left feeling your feelings in a way that is more powerful than if I just gave you something that you can easily understand. So it's a beautiful experience. It's not something to passively sit and watch. It's something that my scene partner didn't show up until opening night, because I mostly engage with the audience, and I will look at you and I will make you part of it. And that's the fun of it, is that that's what we've been missing. We've been doing Zoom plays, but what we haven't done is sat in a room together and felt the energy move back and forth between us. And I know that sounds woo woo, but you guys know, if in a theater together, your hearts sync up, your breathing syncs up, it's a whole other experience. And so it's a special moment for this show. I think it really, really highlights what we've been missing and how powerful the theater is.
And just to jump in real quick, that first night that we were opening on that Friday, it was such an amazing feeling, because here we have a full audience, which was a reduced number of seats in the Pear, but it was a full audience for us. And there were things that happened in the performance that we were going, wait a second, what's happening here? And we're getting a different reaction that we didn't imagine, because again, we had performed in a virtual environment for so long, and to get that feedback and to see that, it felt so dynamic, and it was such a beautiful moment of theater. And I'm never going to forget that. It was really an incredible time to kind of be part of that.
That's wonderful. What
And
is
I
your
have to say, Christopher Chen strangely understood. Like, I feel like he kind of predicted this in a way. There's literally a lockdown scene in the play, and one of the characters is over there baking bread. And I'm like, how did he know that that's what we would all do?
It's true.
Little did we know, it's a time travel play, actually.
It is.
In addition to being everything else, because there are all the other genres. The time travel was a meta genre that we're just exploring now.
You joke, but that was actually one of the original ideas about the narrator being a time traveler, about her popping in and out in different scenarios in different places and different times. And it works from that point of view. I tell everybody this is a science fiction play, and it has nothing to do with science fiction. But it also does have science fiction, and it has, everything from old Cold War elements to the spy at the train station. So, I mean, it's an odd show in so many ways, but it also delivers an interesting connectedness that you don't expect. And I think when people walk away, people have interesting conversations afterwards. And I love that. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
What's some of the good audience feedback you've gotten? Have you had any surprising questions, or there's sometimes that moment where the audience comes up and audience member says, oh, I didn't realize that blah was blah, and you think, I never thought of it that way.
I will say I watch the show I'm around for the show every night, and I'm like in the space and either watching or listening, and I learn things about the show every single time, like the details and the nuance of all the ways in which this story might be about a writer dealing with the trauma of losing his wife is like a detail that I like, like listening to it every night. I'm like, oh, is this about that? Is this about just working through, like this writer working through his marriage? I didn't see that in this part of the play before. Here's this new thing. We had a patron last week who was just like crying after the show, and she came up and she was like, I don't know why I'm crying. And I was like, what a great experience to have. And then we talked through it. She loved the play. Her friend did not like the play as much. Her friend was like, I don't know what's happening. Like, try to understand the logic of it. And that can work if you have the time and energy to invest into it. And like Annamarie said, it is very much a heart play. The more you give in to the play, the more you let the play work on you. And it's so fascinating to have a conversation with these two patrons who had different experiences, who like, one of them was like, okay, let me try to work through the logic of this. And the other one was like, I am overcome with emotion, but I do not know why that is. And to experience them coming to a consensus between the two of them about what the experience of the play was. And that doesn't happen with every play. That doesn't happen where, you know, you can have two people come to see the play and connect with it in very different ways. And I think, you know, both of those connecting ways were perfectly suitable, right? There's something meaningful about leaving this play and thinking, okay, the logic of this play did not track in my mind, and I needed to track in my mind. And so I'm going to work this out. And I don't care how long it takes me. And there's meaning to the experience of an audience member thinking, I maybe don't understand logistically every move that this stage magician made, but I'm a big fan of magic. And the thing about magic is that magic works not because people want to know how it happens, but because people don't want to know how it happens. And so if you're able to let the play work on you in that way, you end up in a place where you're like, okay, I have had an experience here. I've connected with the narrator, with Annamarie. I've connected with these characters and their struggles. And I see that experience in something in my life. And, oh, the narrator said I had an experience like this. And have I had an experience like this? Yes. Oh, let me bring my recollection of that into this play. And it becomes about the audience. And the play is as much about the audience as it is about anyone else, because the narrator consistently brings back in, you are thinking this right now. And then you have to reconcile that with, I obviously wasn't thinking that right now, but now I am. And should I be in control of this? And like, what does that make me think of? And that to me is like a beautiful way to bring back theater, to like draw us. And Annamarie said it perfectly. Just like, we've been missing that experience of having something collective done and work on us, and to have a conversation with actors in a space. And this is as conversational as it will get in terms of theater. It's working on you the whole time.
And I love how he uses the second person. It's so interesting when it's you are doing this, you are doing this. And at first when I started reading the play, I thought, is this going to feel like just a lot kind of gimmicky? You know, like, oh, let's just try something different for the sake of trying something different. But Annamarie is right. It really is a heart play, because at first you're thinking, well, what's happening? And then you just have to kind of let go and just experience it. And obviously I've only experienced it on the page, but even reading it, I felt that.
Without question, that's exactly part of it. And it's interesting how when you listen to that and you listen to the words, you find it really engaging. You find yourself enveloped by the characters, and also that second person element, which is it is surprising to read, but when you hear it, it takes you on a bit of a journey, and it kind of like supports you as the audience member and you as part of the performance. And I know Annamarie and I were talking just last Saturday. We're outside just talking about how there are elements in the play right now that we didn't talk about, but now we see differently, completely differently, because of just the way they have become alive. They become this real living, breathing element. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I loved what Annamarie said about her scene partner didn't show up until opening night, because we always say, you know, you do theater and the last character is the audience, or it's the show's not there until the audience is there. What is your outdoor setup like? I find it really interesting so that one night you can see it indoors, one night you can see it outdoors or streaming. What's your outdoor setup like?
Yeah, so just to clarify, we have matinees outdoors, but we're not doing evening shows outdoors.
Right.
But yeah, so we are lucky at the Pear to have one, a very spacious parking lot, and two, a gigantic garage door that opens into the theater. And so what we've sort of bamboozled together, that's the wrong word, but it actually is very appropriate for this situation.
It works. It works.
Sino is nodding because we've been in the trenches of this. It's very difficult to direct a show for two different stages and in two different technology setups, because actually, and you can kind of see it from the photos, but technology and the film elements play a pretty dramatic role in this piece, in the understanding of the piece, in the atmosphere of the piece. And so what we did was we created a stage that opens out to the that you can pull up there's a stage that just lives outside of our theater right now. And then there's a back part of that stage that once you roll up the door, you can attach. And then elements that move from indoors to outdoors to create some of the set environment, but it is a different set. And then we have a giant projector inside that projects this like 20 by 20 foot projection. And on outside, we have television screens instead. And so it is, if you ever want to see a remarkable feat in stagecraft, you should come see the crew switch on Saturdays around noon from the around 12:30 from the indoor to the outdoor setup, moving all of the technology and so that we can project and have sound cues and all this stuff in about an hour before the audience arrives. And it's quite a beast, but it is manageable at this point. I will say that the first week we were like, in all theater shows, there's some extent that this happens, but we were like, well, we think it can happen in an hour. Let's try it. Let's do it. And luckily for us, it worked out. And it's cool to see the show is very different outside. And actually our board president, Charmin Hilfinger, she's seen the show both indoors and outdoors, and she really likes the intimacy of the outdoor performance. Of course, the seat, we have all 90 seats set up on the indoor performance, and then they're socially distanced, so we're capping the audience at 30. We're only bringing the amount of chairs outside for the outdoor performance that we have audience members, and then we're socially distancing those chairs based on parties. And so it is a much more intimate performance outside, and it does feel like, as opposed to the inside where, you know, the actors are playing to this large space, that actually the actors are playing really to you and not to anyone else. So I do think that the show is different. Annamarie could probably talk a little bit more about that.
I think it's extremely different. And I love doing it indoors because you have the lights, and I feel like the lights is magic, right? It's just, oh, they're so beautiful. But I'm one of those nerdy people that goes to a play and looks at the lighting. We do it outdoors. We have the sun, which is delightful. I feel like what I'm doing with a lot of direct address is very Shakespearean, and so I have a perfect Shakespearean then audience outdoors. And indoors, I can see the people in the front row, and then you can kind of see outdoors. I know exactly what you think about me. I know exactly how you're feeling. I know who wants to talk to me and who doesn't. And so it gets a little more personalized when it's outdoors because there's more interaction available, because everybody's got masks on anyway, but I can tell the difference between smiling and frowning outdoors. Indoors, it's a little harder to adjust, so I kind of have to guess. But I think if you have the time on a Saturday, come see it both ways, because it's different. It's faster outdoors. It's very different.
Yeah, outdoors a little Shakespeare in the parking lot. Yeah, it's
Shakespeare in the parking lot. Nice. That's really interesting. And I was going to ask if your audience was masked, and so that affects how the actors interact with the audience because you're not seeing their whole face. It's fascinating. Do you are audiences, or is one choice more popular than the other, or are your audiences pretty well spread out among the three options?
Yeah, we're having, I think our indoor shows are for the most part selling out. So yes, I mean, obviously if there's a part of this that's time of day, our Saturday morning matinees indoors, as you might imagine, you know, there's a certain crowd who is interested in an 11 a.m. show. And there's a certain audience that's interested in that like robust Friday night evening show. And our audiences, yeah, we cap all of our audiences at 30 for this run, and all audiences have to be masked and vaccinated. And so we're averaging about 20 outside, 15 to 20 outside, and 25 to 30 inside. So I guess even, but certainly inside, people are excited to be back in the theater. But what we've learned is that the people who are ready to go in the theater are ready. And then the people who are not ready are definitively not ready. And we're finding that there's less of a, I mean, it's been a wonderful experience to be like, this is the first, we had a couple this past weekend who said, this is our first time outside of the house as a date in 15 months. And what an honor it is to be people's first outing, whether it's and they were coming to an outdoor show. And, you know, it was important to us for people to have the options, right? To have the option to see the show as they would like, to meet them where they are, because we won't be able to do all of this forever, right? It becomes harder and harder to get rights to stream a show, and we're going to continue working on it and doing what we can. And we want to try to make sure people know that as we learn about what this post-COVID era looks like and what the next step looks like, we want to make sure that we can meet them where we are.
Of course.
The other part of that is accessibility. Starting last week and moving forward for the rest of the indoor shows on Fridays, we're live streaming it. And in addition to live stream, we're now inserting 2 ASL interpreters to make it even more accessible for people and give them an opportunity to see it in different ways. And and that's key to this, is the fact that because it is the type of show that offers something that I don't think you see everywhere. It's different. It is, you always say the show's different, but this show is different. So we want to make sure that if we could make it a little bit more accessible, that we would. And that's been really, really helpful. Between that and having both indoors, outdoors, and, different times of days, and, these weekend performances, they've been a lot of fun. So we've been very, I'm very thankful for everything that the Pear's done and everything that the whole troupe has put together.
Well, I also want to shout out the group Sinohui works for, which is Harmony Works, which is responsible for the ASL interpretation, has done a really lovely thing with co-producing this with us in ways that has made the show go above and beyond our expectations. So it's been wonderful to work with Sinohui and in Harmony Works as well.
That's terrific. And the show is still running through the 18th. So you can see it one of 3 ways. All the information is at thepear.org. I'm going to move on to our second show we're going to talk about tonight, but afterwards we can take questions from the audience. We can come back and talk a little bit more about the late wedding too. As I segue, I wanted to ask Sinjin so the next one is Mothers of the Bride, and that starts August 20th, and that is actually that's the beginning of your 20th season, right?
Yeah, it's the opening to our 20th anniversary season.
That's fantastic. Happy anniversary.
It's a party.
It's a party. Now, is the setup going to be the same way? It's also a hybrid production. Will it be indoor and outdoor, or indoor and streaming? How's that going to work?
Indoor streaming only for that is our current best thinking, but who knows what's going to happen. I'm sure Katie right now is like, no. It's very difficult to block a show 2 different ways for 2 different stages. Sinohui knows that well. It's I think we're going to move to indoor and streaming. And that feels like the meaningful next step, so we can get the audience hopefully comfortable with coming back to the theater in some context, let them know that our safety procedures are important to us and that it's meaningful to come back at this time, and then phase into what will be our trajectory next season, with Mothers of the Bride being the bridge to that. That's our current best thinking.
Great. Well, we have Katie here tonight, who is the director, and Meghan, who is the playwright. So who wants to jump in and tell our audience a little bit about this comedy? Maybe you, Meghan, because you wrote it.
Yeah, definitely. This is a comedy, so we'll be starting up with hopefully lots of laughter. And it's about a young bride-to-be who has to balance the affections of her mother and stepmother as she plans her wedding, and then her future mother-in-law and future stepmother-in-law show up, and it gets even more interesting. It explores, it's comedy, but at the same time it's exploring some important issues: gender roles in marriage, parenthood, quite a few different things. So
And it's a homegrown piece because it started. Now, did it have its very first reading at the Pear? Is that tell us about the history of it?
Yep. It started. Yeah, I'm so thankful and grateful to the Pear. I've been in the Pear Playwright Guild for 4 years now. So as part of that, we have Pear Slices every year in May, where 8 shows or 8 plays from the guild are produced. So Mothers of the Bride, the 10-minute version was first produced in Pear Slices 2019. And then I developed it into a full-length play after that, and it had a reading in Fresh Produce, where there's 2 or 3 plays from the guild that have a full-length reading at the Pear with actors. And so that was in November 2019, I believe. And based on the audience feedback from that, I then reworked and reworked. I'm a writer who does lots and lots of revisions. It was great at the reading. There were several board members, directors from the Pairs. The artistic director, Sinjin, was there, which is great, before he began. And yeah, then I reworked the play into its current version.
That's terrific. Ah, so you must be so excited for the world premiere.
Yeah, I'm thrilled, especially during this really interesting time that we're, obviously challenging for all of us artists. It's just really, it's going to be fantastic to be able to kind of celebrate coming back to the theater and to be able to share this piece with everyone after all of this. And Sinjin's done an awesome job, and the whole Pear team keeping us going, I should say too. We had Pear Slices this past year and the year before over Zoom and then filmed. So but especially obviously with this one being the world premiere and it's my first full-length production.
Oh, that's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great. And Katie, how did you get connected with the play? Were you involved with any of the readings, or where are you in it?
I wasn't. I was actually I was visiting family for the first time since us getting vaccinated, and got an email from Sinjin saying, "Hey, take a look at the script," and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna look at the first couple of pages, while because I'm seeing family and everything, and then I ended up reading the entire script that night because I was amazed. I actually had this conversation with a friend very recently that it's why is this not being shown, this sort of multifaceted view of marriage and motherhood and all of the wonderful things, but also all of the tough stuff too, and all of the tough decisions that we have to make as women, or as the bride, as the mother, and that's I saw the truth in the way that Meghan wrote, and as she said, bringing up some really interesting and very true themes there on our the roles that are projected onto us when we become mothers or wives. Yeah.
It's interesting. We were talking on the call beforehand. Several of us on this call are parents, and so it was, and some of us very new parents. So this kind of show kind of hits close to home. But you also have so many different types of mothers. That's why I love that she's got the mom, the stepmom, the fiance's mom, the stepmom who's like almost the same age as she is, and they all have these interesting relationships. And there's a really nice moment in the play where the mother is sort of trying to be there for the daughter, but she doesn't think that she can be there in an emotional way, and she turns to the stepmother and says, well, that's the role you play, you step in. But then she realizes that she's got some hidden strengths that she didn't know about, and I found that was a really beautiful moment of the play. And they're going to be
I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's one of my favorites too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I started thinking about it at first. I expected the play to be one way, and it went so many interesting directions that I didn't expect. And I don't want to say too much because as spoilers. Obviously, I haven't seen it yet, but I read it. But there were a lot of hidden depths to the play as well. I really enjoyed reading it.
No, thanks. I'm glad you mentioned that because actually that whole section, that second half of the play, didn't exist when I did the first reading back in November 2019. And I was trying to get there. I was trying to work through and think, what's this about? And, it becomes about this mother kind of, obviously growing and being like, okay, I can, she doesn't even know she's equipped to be a mother, really. She's had a tough life and was never really emotionally available. And so after the feedback and kind of listening and kind of putting things together, that kind of moment came at the end where the mother-daughter relationship kind of for the first time is almost formed, even though she's been parenting her daughter for 20 some odd years. And then with the help of the other mothers. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that moment.
And there are going to be a lot of wedding dresses in this play, I think. I was trying to count, but I lost count. Where are you guys getting all those dresses from?
That's an excellent TBD question. No one knows yet. That's a what I like to call a future Sinjin problem.
Well, you were sort of joking about how much time you had to prepare. Where are you in the process for this play that opens August 20th? What are you doing right now?
We're in good shape. We're confirming crew at the moment. Auditions will happen. So we have our general auditions open virtually that folks can submit to until the 3rd digitally, and then there will be a separate callback that Katie will lead in early July as we sort of get started with the process. And so we're pretty close actually to having a full crew, and then we're pretty much ready to go, right, Katie? You don't need any rehearsal time or anything. It'll be
yeah.
So can people still audition?
Yeah, so you can so how we're doing auditions this season is we'll do a general auditions instead of doing them in person. We're doing them virtually. So actually, if you go to the www.thepear.org/season-20, you can see the audition link, and people can submit their headshot, their resume, and their monologues, their video monologues. And you, once that is submitted, Katie's going to pull from that list and from some other lists we have from previous years, and do callbacks. But you can indicate which shows that you're interested in and available in for that show. So there's still some time. That link technically closes on the 3rd at midnight on the 3rd. So a couple days to submit that. And if folks email info@thepear.org and want to make special arrangements, or if they have a hard time with technology, super happy to help them out, because we know that sometimes that can be a bridge that is challenging to cross for some. And so if folks want to submit a general audition for this coming season, they can absolutely do that. And then we'll do callbacks either in person or virtually, depending on what the director chooses to do all season. But we'll pull first from these virtual auditions. So definitely still time to audition for the show. We're not cast yet.
And that's a whole different world too, is virtual auditions. I mean, of course, some actors have been doing video auditions all along in special cases, but I've never done a video audition. I can't imagine. That for some reason sounds a little bit more nerve-wracking than an in-person audition. I'm not sure why.
I found this, we've done it a lot this past season because we continue producing digitally, and we've done a bunch of callbacks on Zoom. And you know what? I've not done it as an actor, but I think logistically, one, it's less time, less money to drive to somewhere. And you can be called for a shorter period of time for a very specific thing, whereas sometimes callbacks can last, I mean, we all know this, can last quite some time depending on what it is, but you can be more, it's easier to be targeted on Zoom and use the breakout rooms as you would use breakout rooms in a real theater. We've run them very casually, where it's like, this is the group of people we're doing right now. You're doing for this role. We want to see you read this. Then we want to see you read with this person. And then we'll swap. And then you're free to go. And then we'll talk to you later. It's going to be difficult in terms of coming back to the live theater, because there are things that you can see on video and things that you can't see on video. And so how do we make sure that balance is there? Because there are things that we want to learn from the pandemic, like not making people commute if they don't have to. Like, I'm asking directors for this coming season to say, absolutely be in the theater for as many of the rehearsals as you need to be, but I do want you to consider, like, are there parts of rehearsals that you can allow people to be at their homes for? Is that what is necessary to be at the theater, and how can we make sure we protect people's space and time, because none of us are getting rich off of this, right? So how do we make sure that we learn from what has happened this past year and not just pretend like it didn't happen? So lots of options, opportunities.
Absolutely. And we certainly hear a lot about other lines of work where people are saying, oh, we're going to be able to work at home more often. I didn't think about that happening in terms of rehearsal and audition. I'm fascinated by the idea of a Zoom callback where you just get set off into a breakout room to read a scene with one person, but it makes perfect sense. I've just never done it.
Yeah, it's a weird concept to wrap because it's so alien, but I mean, and it's not as intimate, it's not as connected. It can't be, but we have found all last season that it worked. I mean, it works well. And once you get you have to help people get their guard down at the beginning. Sure. Make sure folks don't know that this is not going to be like a crazy intense 17-hour meeting, because no one likes Zoom meetings that much. But then it's pretty fun. It gives you the option to it's fun to teleport between breakout rooms and go and now we're here. That's super fun. And I don't have to
science fiction.
Yes, that is my theme for my existence.
I love it.
That's why Sino and I get along so well.
I just wanted to point out to our folks watching either on Zoom or on Facebook, feel free if you want to type in questions or thoughts into the chat, either Facebook or Zoom. For our folks, I see Miranda has typed something into the chat. She says she suggests Goodwill and thrift stores for wedding dresses. And Miranda is our resident prop designer at City Lights, so she knows where to find good stuff. Oh, there's Miranda. Hi, Miranda.
Hi, my bandwidth is terrible, so I turned the camera off. That's why. But I'm here, and thank you.
Yeah, her camera's going in and out.
I'm learning the Zoom auditions. I really like that. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for being here, everybody.
Thank you, Miranda.
Since we mentioned the wedding dresses, can I just give a shout out to Patty Bristow, who does costumes at Pear, because actually the first short play of Mother's the Bride, there were several dresses, and the funny story was she used one of her daughter's wedding dresses, I think, she actually used her daughter's actual dress in the play. So she went above and beyond. Yeah.
Well, that is going above and beyond.
Yeah, I'm not at liberty to announce anything yet, but Patty might be in some way involved in this production.
That's great.
That's
great. And there was something interesting about the play I noticed on the website too. There was a thing for subscribers for Mothers of the Bride.
Yeah, so our next season is a very large season at the Pear.
Yeah,
we have 11 shows instead of our traditional 7-show season, because we're doing mini shows. We're doing what are called pair pairings, where we're putting shows in repertory, often shows that the Pear has done before with shows that the Pear has not done before. And since the Pear is just opening up, and since Mothers of the Bride is going to be a remarkably exciting opening for our 20th anniversary season, what we're doing is that when our tickets go on sale, and they start going on sale on July 24th at our our season premiere launch party, folks who subscribe, basically the way that the math works out is that Mothers of the Bride will be a free addition to their subscription, so they don't pay additional in their subscription for that. So basically, for a full season subscription, they're really paying a discounted price then for 10 shows instead of 11 shows. And that's just, it's been a hard year, and we want people to come back to the theater, and we want this as a gift. And we also know that there are still patrons who are deciding in what way they would like to see theater and how their theater activities are going to proceed moving forward, and we want to give them the time and space to make that decision. So they can still buy a subscription at the Pear, even if by August they're like, I'm not sure, or I don't know what's going on, and not really lose anything by purchasing that subscription, or see the show digitally, which is a awesome way that we're able to present stuff in the short term, at least, and in the middle term. So that's sort of what we're trying to offer for subscribers only. If you buy a sort of half season subscription or a full season subscription, Mothers of the Bride is included in that, and you don't have to pay it works out mathematically that you're not paying as much for the subscription as you would if that was included in the cost, which is super fun, super exciting. It's very lucky.
That's great. Yeah, I encourage everyone to check out the Pear's website because the season is really interesting, and you have this kind of repertory thing going where it's going to be a really exciting season for actors, I think.
That was the hope. I mean, we thought, I mean, go big or go home if we're opening the theater, right? So why not do it big? And it's our 20th anniversary season. It's a big milestone for the Pear. And there are so many shows as I was developing the season and talking to folks. There are so many shows from the Pear's past that we wanted to do. And also, you know, there's this idea of intersections that I'm really fascinated by about, you know, how things were before versus how they are now, and how we can give new breath, new vision, new light, new life to productions, by putting them in concert, in connection, in some ways, in opposition to other pieces. So these shows were sort of designed to be in sometimes counterpoints to each other's, and sometimes sort of, you know, complementary or supplementary to each other. But I think and for actors who, you know, in some of these show slots will get to act in both shows and do a true repertory experience, I think it'll be such a fun experience. It will be difficult. I don't think it will be the easiest season that the Pear has ever had, but I was so bored this last year trying to put up an all digital season that, I mean, I guess we needed to do something big, I guess.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And I say again, if anybody has questions, feel free to type them into the chat. You've got so much interesting stuff going on. That's great. City Lights reopens in September, and so we're watching very closely what everyone else is doing. We're all scheduled. We've got our plays and everything, but we haven't opened our doors yet. And so it's really, we joke that we're having to learn how to do our jobs all over again. That is a common thing said at the staff meetings. And of course, as Sinjin mentioned, we're all have been doing such different jobs. I mean, I'm the marketing director. I didn't expect to be running an online series, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm looking forward to having this series continue and often be a complement to main stage shows as well. I
Yeah.
think it could be, I do our dramaturgy guide highlights where we do have a lot of interviews and we delve into other things that let you live longer in the world of the play. And I think we can continue to do that in the Zoom as well, have good discussions like we're having tonight. So, you know, we're all
Yeah.
figuring it out as we go along.
Yeah, it's a fun adventure. I mean, and you know, it's so funny now because it's like in many ways, like we've done this backstage pass thing at the Pear all this current season where we've like done a look inside of the Pear, and we'll definitely want to continue doing that. And you know, it's a beast to reopen a theater. And I also think about it from the actor's perspective, where they're seeing for the first time in 15 months, these folks had a second performance, which when we were shooting stuff digitally, it was like, my job is to bring you in and for you to do it as quickly as humanly possible in the safest way so that we minimize risk, right? And so it's super fascinating to see how the show, you know, shows actually grow over time, it turns out. And we all knew that before, but now it's like coming back for the second weekend, I was like, oh, this is a different show. I forgot that happens. Or like, oh man, there are all these logistics to work out with reopening a theater. Yeah, and we were talking about this before, Rebecca, that like it's much easier to shut down a theater than it is to open a theater, relatively speaking. There's like all these things like, oh, I have to think about that again. Like, do we have like enough toilet paper in the bathroom? Like that's a thing that like for 15 months wasn't really a big deal. Like, like, and of course, like there's all hands on deck as we start to open it, but it is like, it's magical in some ways. And it's also like gives you a realization about all the things that go into making a theater function and how much of those things become rote in a part of your routine. And when you have to rebuild routines, it's not an easy process, but it is fun. It makes you excited to be back and doing it again, to have to worry about these things once again.
Sure. I have an audience question from Linda who wants to know if you are social distancing actors in the dressing rooms as well. How I know you said you had some rehearsals on Zoom. How have you been working with actors?
Yeah, so it's a balance, right? We did the rehearsal on Zoom. They were masked throughout the rehearsal process until dress rehearsals. And also by the time dress rehearsals started, all the guidelines from the state levels at the state level and the county levels were lifted at that time. Sure. We are absolutely encouraging folks to stay as protected and safe as possible, but we do testing protocols, and our cast is by and large vaccinated, and so they are not socially distanced in the dressing rooms.
Gotcha.
And it's important to us that like we get test results from folks regularly so that we make sure that they are staying safe for the foreseeable future. And so it's that balance. And plus, like, whenever they are with the audience, they are masked. Whenever they go out to see the audience, they are masked. It is only when they are on stage and backstage before the show with the crew and cast that are on this protocol in which they are unmasked.
Annamarie.
Plus, you have the whole audience, which is they're not just masked, but they're also indoors. They're also vaccinated. So
yeah.
Oh, so you're checking vaccine cards.
Yeah. To us, it was important if we were coming back inside the theater, at least for now. And we'll see how sentiments and mindsets feel moving forward. That like vaccination records or a recent negative test, but we've had all vaccination records. It is super important to us when people are coming back.
And you got to keep in mind that we opened 3 days after the state changed every rule there was.
Yep.
So June 15th, they changed all the rules. We opened 3 days later. So we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. And so we maintained the highest level of safety to make sure everybody stays safe. So that's been really important.
Yeah, it sounds like you're being very conscientious. What a challenge. I wanted to ask Annamarie what that felt like as an actor to be rehearsing masked and then suddenly taking the masks off.
Oh, that's an excellent question. I did not have the same experience as everybody else.
Oh, because you're the narrator. Yeah.
Well, because I'm the narrator, and also because I am the narrator, I was with my family in Illinois for most of the rehearsals, and I came back Tuesday and we opened Friday. So that they were doing a Zoom, they were masked on stage, and I was in my own house trying to figure, can you hear me? Am I?
You're on an iPad.
Those were the worst, to have some people physically there and me not there, because there's no timing, there's no energy. I can't tell what's going on. I can't hear any. That was incredibly difficult. Luckily, most of what I do is just monologues to the audience, so it doesn't matter. There's still, and I feel like we're all going through this, right? There's still like a moment of like, oh, you can see my face, but that's okay right now. That's okay. Sinjin has been so supportive of, what do you, the actors and crew, need to feel safe, and how, come talk to me personally if you need to. And it's going to be a changing situation, because right now my family's still in Illinois, but I have 2 young children who are of course not vaccinated. And so the last, like 2 weeks, I'm going to be around them, and how am I going to feel? And, it's strange. It's definitely strange. So yeah, when are you putting it on? When are you taking it off? When are you putting it on? But I think because we could rehearse on Zoom and see each other's faces for a little bit first, even then we showed up masked, you still recognize the human in the eyes. So yeah, it was a strange one.
Yeah, I hear you. I have 2 young children too, and I just can't wait till they can get their shots. It changes everything. Wow, you guys, this has been so fascinating. I feel like I sort of had a master class in reopening a theater by talking to all of you.
Well, I'm glad it seems like that, because in the moment it was just chaos. It just felt like chaos. How do we keep people safe? I mean, there's so many questions to ask. How do we keep people safe? What's the balance between keeping people safe and being laborious? And there are audience members who are like, can I take my mask off? I'm vaccinated. Here's what the rules say about vaccinations and all that stuff. And I get that, and I feel that. And we've chosen to greet our audience to make sure that they feel safe and comfortable. And that means that, our audiences will be masked for the time being and for the future, and we want them to be vaccinated also and do our part in getting to herd immunity. That feels really important right now, and we'll see how things go. But I'm glad it feels like we knew what we were doing, but it was really like a lot of it was conversations. I mean, Annamarie can speak to this, and it was like a lot of just like, hey, how there's safety, there's the law. and then there is like, actually, how are you, like, what will be best for you?
Mhm.
And that's really the because the actors are the ones who are at the most risk at any given time.
Yeah.
And so how do we make sure that we're doing everything within our power to make sure that they feel like they are excited to go back and do a show live? Because the audience, there is risk there, absolutely. But if they're masked and vaccinated, very different level of risk than being unmasked on stage. And so how do we make sure that we have the conversations openly? And we try to do our best. And hopefully, you know, the cast feels like we did that. And with all the other logistics going around, it's been crazy, but valuable, important, and exciting.
And then every Friday night, we're doing a multi-camera live stream. Let's put that on top of everything else. We're miking the actors. We're in there. We have music and sound and all these other things happening. And then last weekend, we started having our ASL interpreter. So it just became, this organically has been a bit of a roller coaster. It has grown and changed and shifted, but all for the better. At the end of the day, it's a better production because of it and because of what's going on. And I have to commend Sinjin and everybody at the Pear and just the quality of the work they put out and what they do and how they stand not just behind you, but by you and make sure that it works. So I have nothing but wonderful things to say.
Well, everyone has put in many more than their fair share of hours in this production. So we've come to this with the turmoil, and I think, you know, it is better for it. And so, you know, like the work has been magical. It's been great.
21 days, Katie. 21 days.
The stock of note cards you have at your disposal, you know, it is
I literally
the most
do.
incredible thing that I've ever experienced.
I'll keep bringing them up.
It sounds like everyone at the Pear is just, you're taking very good care of your artists and your audiences, and just being so conscientious and doing the work and making the art at the same time. It's really to be commended.
You're very
as
sweet.
I've said, everyone, the show is still running, The Late Wedding, until the 18th. And after that, you can see Mothers of the Bride. It's all at thepear.org. Hello, you at Facebook. I wave to you. I think we are going to wrap up pretty soon. And before I do, I just want to mention what we're doing next week here in City Lights Zoom. On the next stage, we're going to have a couple of music shows back to back. So next week, we have Ron Scott, who is a jazz keyboardist who's performed a lot. He's in San Jose. He's performed a lot with San Jose Jazz. And he is a character. He's super charming. He's super fun. I'm really excited to have him on the show. And then the following week, actually, wait a minute, 2 weeks after that, we have Amy Obinski, who is a folk singer and also uses a lot of live looping technology when she sings. So she mixes a lot of things around. It's a really interesting sound. So that's July 22nd. July 15th, we are teaming up with the San Jose Museum of Art. And they were going to have one of their curators on the show and one of our directors and playwrights, and they're going to talk about technology and the arts. And it should be a really interesting discussion. So that's what's coming up. It's all at cltc.org/the-next-stage. And before we wrap up for tonight, anyone else from our Pear family, would you like to say anything else about your shows, anything about theater, anything about life, the world? Would you like to show some more note cards? No more note cards.
Just thank you so much. It's so exciting to feel like we're getting in the same room soon. So thank you.
Yeah, I think we all.
I'm so excited, and thanks for having us. It was great to talk about our shows. And one thing I love about the theater is, like, we're not here for, doing it for the money or the fame or anything like that. We're all here doing it because we love it. And I think the pandemic especially showed this. Like, we kept going, and credit to, I'm so grateful to be working with the Pear, to everyone there, keeping us artists working and getting us back in the theater. So, and thanks to City Lights for hosting us to talk about it.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Thank you. I'll put you on speaker so I can see you. Thank you, City Lights. Thank you all. This was just fascinating. I'm out of the area right now, so I'm going to buy a ticket to a streaming show because I know it's not going to sell out, right? Because it's streaming.
Yeah.
So, but I'm probably going to go ahead and buy it like right now. Thank you all. Thank you, Sinjin, for all the work that you're doing. I'm sure, and I also did. I just see that you're also the sound designer for the Late Wedding too, in your spare time.
Yes, yes. Sino and I got to work very closely together, putting the technology of this.
We all have multiple hats. I'm actually directing the live stream while it happens.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Sinohui stays busy. Yeah, we're having a fun adventure at the Late Wedding, and we definitely would love to have everyone a part of it. But yeah, thanks so much for having us. It's wonderful. City Lights is awesome. We love to be a part of this. So thank you.
My
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you all. Good night, everyone. Stay safe. We hope to see you back in our theater soon. Good night.
Night. Take care.